Welcome back, everyone. I spend quite a lot of my time cleaning and prepping parts for the projects that I work on. And I read a lot of comments that go like this. How do you get your parts to look so new? Wire brush, any cleaning fluid or something special? Reference video? Nicely done. But please show your cleaning process. What is your process for parts cleaning? Finding myself forward through filler content like scraping dirt. Understand the need to maximize watching time, but you're losing me. FYI. I guess 3 out of 4 isn't bad. So parts cleaning video, it is. My process is very manual. I'm going to warn you right now. But a lot of people have asked how I get the parts to look the way they look. And I have used everything from caustic hot tank cleaners to ultrasonic cleaners to a putty knife. Everything in between. I've been in shops big and small, and I've seen used just about everything there is. But for the older machines and everything, my process is very, very tedious, very manual. And this is not me saying this is how I recommend everyone should clean parts. I'm just saying this is how I clean parts so that I can answer the questions that have been posed by everyone up to this point. We have the perfect candidate in this rear end tub for the H right here. And although it's a very big piece, the process I am going to use on it is the same process as anything else I've cleaned on the channel here for the past several years. So the part that does not need to be demonstrated is prepping it. I've taken old rags and I've soaked the majority of the gear oil out of the inside. We have scraped all the gasket material from the surfaces, all the old grease. I have pulled the seals and all the plugs. So now we will begin with the degreasing. Enter the old baking pan with mineral spirits. All right, that is my parts cleaning solvent. Works very well. Also, a stiff bristle brush or old toothbrushes also work well, depending on what your space requirements are. These are good for getting inside passages, things like that. This is good for general, just covering surface area right here. And of course, use all the proper protective equipment. I like these gloves, and if I'm going to be doing a lot of solvent, like in the case of this case, I'll also put a respirator mask on because a lot of those droplets get in the air and you end up breathing a lot of that, and it's best just to avoid that. But outfit yourself as you see fit. And good lint-free rags that don't leave a lot of residue behind, because once we go over everything with the solvent, I will end up soaking the majority of it off with that lint-free rag. But this is just to get all of the oil film off of everything, and it's just like washing a car. Start at the top and work your way down. Like I said, it can get very tedious. It is very manual, but being able to go over pieces like this by hand gives me an excellent opportunity to do a thorough inspection, visual inspection of everything. A lot of times I have picked up cracks or nicks, spurs, defects, what have you, because I've taken the time to cover every square inch of them by hand. So what we are going to do is just give the whole interior and the whole exterior of this case a good once over with the solvent and these brushes. All right, everybody, after much turning and rolling and standing up and getting at all sides, we've got all of the greasy stuff off. Anything that was like old gear oil, old grease on the outside. I even hit this quite a bit because it was getting kind of black and slimy down through there on the bottom of the case. So we've got it to the point where the next step is not going to cause any dust to stick to anything. At least we've kept it under control best we can. So for doing any kind of large surface like this, and even most of the smaller surfaces that are flat and easy to do, we're just going to use the wire wheel on the old 4.5-inch angle grinder. I like the kind of the heavier knotted ones for the rough takedown like this, and the flat style. And the cup style is also handy. The cup style is really handy for going around all these contours and nooks and crannies, stuff like that. But yeah, we're just going to wheel this outside, start scratching.
And this is what you keep the really old jacket around for, because you're going to get dirty.
Now that we have the outside cleaned up as well as all the gasket surfaces, I will chase every thread in the entire housing. All right, we've got a bunch of 5/8 ones here, a bunch of 7/16 here, a bunch of 3/8 ones around there. We got some 3/4 down here for the drawbar mount. Every threaded hole gets a tap ran through it, and that not only just renews the threads, it also cleans it out. If there's any like greasy stuff down in the bottom of the hole, it'll come out on the tap, or at least most of it will. It'll let me know that maybe we need to pay a little bit better attention to that spot and get the rest of it out. But it also goes a long way toward getting all the bolts to start really well when you go to put everything together too. After all the threaded holes have been chased, I'll hit every gasket surface with a flat file. And I actually kind of like a slightly dull file for this because it's not overly aggressive and it keeps you from making mistakes. But what you're looking for is any of these bolt holes that have pulled up around the top, because that's quite common. The threads of the bolt will actually displace a little bit of metal. And any nicks that are along the edges, like if something got knocked or hit, anything that might, you know, hold the cover up off of the gasket, maybe create a little bit of an oil seep. You just want to make sure everything is returned to being absolutely flat. This goes for the top surface, the side surfaces, the front, the back where the PTO is, everything. Hit every flat surface. All right, back outside for the final time. Now, if this was a regular sized piece that could fit in the solvent pan, this step would not be necessary. But since this is such a big casting and it holds the whole back end of the tractor, and we've done a lot of grinding that has sprayed, you know, blasted a lot of dust in here, even though we're oil free, we've still got just kind of an overall dirty surface everywhere, inside and out. So what I do in a case like this is take a biodegradable cleaner and a brush, and we will just spray down everything inside and out. So we'll get a good coating on it. There, we're working again. We'll just get a good layer on it first, and once we get it all soaked up, I can take this soft bristle brush and we can just go in here and just do one final scrub. And then when I'm finished with that, usually I'll take the pressure washer after it. And if you had like a gear case that had a bearing or a gear failure that left all kinds of glitter and small bits of metal all around, I've found that hot water removes that even better than solvent will. Solvent leaves quite a lot of that behind. So just a good water blast is kind of a nice final step to just make sure you get the casting completely clean. And you're going to fight a little bit of flash rust because we've got so much for shiny surface. When we're done with the water, I'll get the compressed air out here. We will blast it all dry, and then I think we have a good enough day. Once the sun creeps over here, this can sit out in the sun, and I believe it will evaporate dry, what we don't get with the compressed air after that. In this situation, I decided not to use the pressure washer. The hose is going to be good enough because this whole case wasn't that dirty to start with. And the pressure washer is still winterized because it's it's still winter here. So this is going to do it just fine. And after all of that, case is finally back in the shop for the last time. So we're clean inside and outside. It's ready for new parts. It's ready for new paint. We've got all the grease, grit, grime out of it. Good, flat, clean gasket surfaces. Nice, clean bolt holes. Won't give us any problems at all going back together. I also got both of the axle housings done today, and I wanted to get as far as the top cover as well. We ran out of time. That's all right. We've got tomorrow. Several people in the comment section have asked me if I'm going to do the Gliptol coating to renew the inner surfaces of the gear compartments, because you can see the bottom is getting a little bit bare on this one. Not this tractor, because the H doesn't spend a lot of time sitting, so I'm not that worried about condensation buildup, anything else like that. If this was like the prototype over here that maybe gets started once every 5 years, I'll do a Gliptol coating on the inside, just because, you know, it sits so much. The H has so much oil circulating around, it's really not a concern. If I was going to do a Gliptol coating, I would have spent the time scratching down the inside so that it looks like the outside, and we would have already been going on that by now. Another tool in the arsenal, we've got the sandblasting cabinet. I use this a little bit, all right, for like nook and cranny pieces, like when we get into the brake pedals. These will fit in there, and just about the entire pedal will get blasted because you can't get to most of those tight areas with a wire brush. But one thing I do use it for quite a bit, looking at this brand new lock washer, it's got this silver cad coating on it. It's very slick, and it's been my experience that if I put paint, primer or paint, right over the top of that cad coating, in about 2 years it's going to start lifting and peeling. So I sandblast all the lock washers, like all the brand new ones. All of these started out like this. Okay, so you can see I've blasted the cad coating off of all of them. That roughs up the surface, gives it some tooth, as they say. The paint primer will stick. We won't have any peeling problems at all with that hardware. And a lot of people have asked why we don't just sandblast these big castings. We have a pot blaster too that we can sandblast larger pieces with outside, but it's pretty hard on the air compressor because our compressor is not really sized appropriately. We have to cycle on and off and wait for it to catch up and cool down. So it's a bit more time consuming than just scratching them down with the brush. And another thing, Senior and I have, well, just enough experience with sandblasting entire tractors to know that we don't want to sandblast any machine that we are not going to fully disassemble immediately afterwards, because we tried that a couple times, and even though we thought we had everything sealed up really well and masked off really tight, we found amazing amounts of grit that still find their way into everything on the machine, and then you have basically a grinding paste that's being circulated inside. So we do not sandblast anything that we are not going to completely disassemble and give a thorough cleaning inside and out to, like we just did with this case. Your mileage may vary. That's just one of our rules. One more thing I wanted to talk about, we keep these sandpaper strips around in various grits, and they're really handy for cleaning shafts, gears, and the like. And when they get like this one, where it's just about worn out and it's tough to tell what's the back and what's the front, this one will put a mirror-like shine on finely machined shafts. It's not always necessary to polish them up to that extent, but on camera, it does look really, really nice when you get all the parts all lined out on the bench. So we started today with the solvent pan, and we will end today with the solvent pan. And typically I would wait until tomorrow to do this. But after the solvent, the dirty solvent, has sat for a while, a lot of the grit and the heavier grease and everything will settle out to the bottom. I always keep the pan tipped up like this, and this isn't an old rag, but typically if I have an old rag, this is just kind of how I finish everything off. So just clean it and gently let the solvent roll to the other end of the pan, and then we can go in on the bottom here and just dredge out all the real thick black dirty stuff that's settled out, and that just helps us get a few more miles out of the mineral spirits. All right, so you can see that's not like brand new, but it's plenty clean to go in and start washing some more parts. And we got all that really nasty stuff out of there. By just kind of recycling it like that, I can get a lot of miles out of a 5-gallon bucket of this stuff. And that's how I clean the majority of my parts. I usually don't show much of this on camera because it's not everybody's cup of tea, especially career mechanics that have spent half of their lives cleaning parts. It's not something you really want to watch over and over. But for the people that asked, that's how I do it. That's how things end up looking the way they do after I've finished cleaning them. And because it's so manual and so tedious, and I spend so much time looking at every part of everything, I can pretty much do all of my assessing of condition through the cleaning process, because if something's wrong with it, chances are I'm going to find it, see it, flag it somewhere along the line. So hope you all enjoyed the episode. We will be back to wrenching on the H here next time. That's ready to start putting pieces back in. So we're going to get busy on that. Thank you for watching, everyone.